The collective's judgment. High Commander Vextar stood before the massive viewing screen in the Zephyrian command vessel, watching the blue-green planet Earth rotate slowly beneath them. For 50 years, the Zephyrian collective had observed these strange bipedal creatures called humans, and their conclusion remained unchanged. Humans were weak, emotional, and utterly predictable. "Look at them," Vextar muttered to his tactical officer, Kreen. "They fight among themselves over resources, destroy their own environment, and waste energy on pointless artistic endeavors. How did such a chaotic species ever reach the stars?" Kreen nodded in agreement, his four eyes blinking in sequence. "Our psychological profiles confirm it, Commander. Humans are driven by emotion rather than logic. They form attachments to individuals rather than serving the greater collective. Their military strategies are disorganized and inefficient." The truth was that the Zephyrian collective, like most advanced galactic civilizations, had fundamentally misunderstood humanity from their first encounter. When human ambassador Sarah Chen had arrived at the collective's capital world 50 years ago, she had appeared humble, grateful, and eager to learn. The humans had accepted junior membership in the Galactic Council without protest, agreeing to territorial restrictions and technology limitations that would have insulted any other species. Perfect, Vextar had thought at the time. Another primitive species we can guide and eventually absorb. The collective had established monitoring stations throughout human space, convinced that these emotional creatures needed protection from the harsh realities of galactic politics. What they saw only confirmed their beliefs. Humans arguing in their councils, expressing doubt about their decisions, and showing what appeared to be genuine fear when discussing advanced alien civilizations. But now, as the collective faced resource shortages and territorial disputes with other major powers, Earth's rich planets looked increasingly attractive. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Stage a series of small conflicts in human space, demonstrate that humans could not protect themselves, then offer full collective protection in exchange for permanent territorial rights. The test at New Terra. The human colony of New Terra was chosen as the perfect testing ground. Located on the outer rim of human space, it housed 3 million settlers who had been farming and mining for 2 decades. The colony had no military installations, no defensive fleet, and no apparent strategic value beyond its resources. "We'll send a moderate force," Vextar explained to the Collective Council. "Enough to overwhelm their simple defenses, but not so much that it appears we're trying to commit genocide. We'll claim it was a rogue pirate attack that we're investigating. The humans will beg for our protection." The attack force consisted of 12 Zephyrian assault ships, each crewed by 30 elite warriors. Against a defenseless farming colony, it was overwhelming firepower. The ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Terra system, their weapons charging as they approached the planet. "Broadcasting surrender demands," reported Communications Officer Tylen. "Standard intimidation protocols." The response from New Terra was exactly what they expected. Panic, fear, and desperate calls for help broadcast to nearby human systems. The colonists evacuated their cities and fled to underground shelters, their voices filled with terror as they transmitted final messages to their families. "Begin the attack," Vextar ordered. "Target infrastructure only. We want survivors to tell the story." The first wave of plasma bolts struck New Terra's communication arrays and power plants. The human response was chaotic and disorganized, exactly as predicted. Small civilian ships fled the system while emergency broadcasts filled the comm channels with frightened voices. But then something unexpected happened. The Shepherds arrive. As the Zephyrian ships moved into low orbit to begin their ground assault, new contacts appeared on their sensors. 3 ships, sleek and dark, emerged from what appeared to be empty space. They hadn't dropped out of hyperspace. They had simply materialized, as if they had been waiting there all along, invisible. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves," Tylen transmitted, but received no response. The 3 human ships were unlike anything in the collective's databases. They were smaller than the Zephyrian vessels, but moved with an efficiency that seemed almost organic. No wasted motion, No unnecessary maneuvering. They simply positioned themselves between the attack force and the planet. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "I'm reading energy signatures I don't recognize. These ships don't match any known human technology." Vextar frowned. "Perhaps they're a new design. 3 ships against 12. Open fire." The Zephyrian weapons fired, but the human ships didn't try to dodge. Instead, they absorbed the impacts with energy shields that rippled like water. The return fire came without warning. Precise, devastating beams that surgically disabled the Zephyrian ships' weapon systems without destroying them. "How is this possible?" Kreen gasped. "Our intelligence reports showed no human ships with capabilities like this." But the real shock came when the human ships began deploying their ground forces. Instead of traditional landing craft, they launched what appeared to be individual pods, each containing a single soldier. These soldiers, later designated as shepherds by terrified Zephyrian survivors, moved unlike anything the collective had ever encountered. They were tall, approximately 2 meters in height, wearing form-fitting armor that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, as if controlled by a single mind. They advanced on the Zephyrian ground forces with a calm, measured pace that was somehow more terrifying than any battle cry. The Zephyrian commander on the ground, Sub-Commander Vork, tried to establish communication. "Unknown soldiers, identify yourselves. We are acting under collective authority." One of the shepherds turned toward him, and through the translucent faceplate, Vork saw eyes that seemed to glow with an inner light. When the soldier spoke, his voice was calm and emotionless. "You attacked our people. That was a mistake." The massacre. What followed was not a battle but a demonstration. The shepherds moved through the Zephyrian forces like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons were unlike anything in the collective's arsenal. Energy weapons that seemed to adapt to each target, finding weaknesses in armor and shields that their users didn't even know existed. But it wasn't just their technology that was overwhelming. It was their coordination. The shepherds fought as a single entity, each soldier anticipating the other's movements with perfect precision. They communicated without speaking, moved without sound, and struck with efficiency that bordered on the supernatural. "They're not human," Vork reported desperately to the orbital fleet. "These aren't the emotional, chaotic creatures we've been observing. There's something else entirely." The Zephyrian forces, despite their training and superior numbers, found themselves outmatched at every turn. The shepherds disabled their vehicles, neutralized their weapons, and captured their leaders with movements so swift and precise that many Zephyrians didn't even realize they were under attack until it was over. In orbit, Vextar watched in horror as his ground forces were systematically dismantled. "All ships, prepare to evacuate our ground forces and retreat." But the human ships had other plans. With the same surgical precision they had shown earlier, they disabled the Zephyrian ships' hyperspace drives, trapping them in the system. Then came a transmission that chilled Vextar to his core. "This is Captain Marcus Reed of the Terran Defense Force. You will surrender your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any attempt to resist will be met with overwhelming force." The voice was human, but there was something different about it. It carried an authority that the collective had never heard from any human before. The revelation begins. As Zephyrian prisoners were processed on the captured ships, they began to understand the magnitude of their mistake. The humans who interrogated them were nothing like the diplomatic and frightened creatures they had observed for 50 years. These humans spoke with confidence, demonstrated technological knowledge that surpassed the collective's own, and showed a strategic understanding that left the Zephyrians questioning everything they thought they knew. "Where did you come from?" Vextar demanded of Captain Reed during his interrogation. "Our monitoring stations showed no military buildup, no new ship construction." Reed smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. "Commander, your monitoring stations have been showing you exactly what we wanted you to see. Did you really think a species that reached the stars could be as primitive as we appeared?" The implications hit Vextar like a physical blow. You've been deceiving us. All this time, you've been hiding your true capabilities. Not hiding, Reed corrected. Preparing. We knew from the day we made first contact that some species would see us as weak and try to take advantage. So we let you see what you expected to see while we prepared for this day. The shepherds, Vextar whispered. What are they? Reed's expression grew serious. They're what humanity becomes when we decide to stop pretending to be harmless. Every human colony, every human world, has them. They'd been watching, waiting, and preparing for exactly this kind of aggression. As the captured Zephyrians were transferred to human custody, word of the defeat began to spread throughout the collective. The attack on New Terra, meant to demonstrate human weakness, had instead revealed a truth that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of humanity. The humans were not the junior species they had pretended to be. They were apex predators who had been patient enough to let their enemies underestimate them while they prepared for war. The Collective's crisis. In the Grand Council chamber of the Zephyrian Collective, emergency sessions had continued for 7 days straight. The news from New Terra had sent shockwaves through every level of their society. High Admiral Zixra stood before the assembled leaders, her usually composed demeanor cracked by the weight of what they had discovered. Fellow counselors, she began, her voice heavy with implications, we face a crisis unlike any in our history. Our intelligence network, which has observed humanity for 50 years, has been completely compromised. The humans have not only deceived us about their military capabilities, but have been studying us while we believed we were studying them. The council chamber erupted in angry voices. These were beings who had ruled star systems, who had never been outmaneuvered by a species they considered primitive. The very foundation of their galactic worldview was crumbling. How is this possible? Demanded Counselor Vexrim, his tentacles writhing with agitation. Our psychological profiles showed them to be emotional, inefficient, and technologically inferior. Admiral Zixra activated a holographic display showing footage from the New Terra engagement. The assembled leaders watched in stunned silence as the shepherds moved through their forces with inhuman precision and coordination. Analysis of the captured soldiers reveals extensive biological and technological enhancement, she explained. These are not the baseline humans we've been observing. They represent a level of human evolution that our scientists believed was impossible. The truth was even more disturbing than the footage suggested. Interrogation of the surviving Zephyrian forces had revealed that the shepherds communicated through a form of quantum entanglement that allowed instantaneous coordination across vast distances. Their armor was not just protective but served as an interface to a vast network of human intelligence and tactical systems. They've been preparing for this confrontation for decades, Zixra continued. While we watched their civilian populations and diplomatic corps, they were developing capabilities that surpass our own in every meaningful category. The network revealed. Deep within human space, in a facility that existed in the shadow of Earth's moon, Director Elena Vasquez stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. Each point of light represented a human world, and each world was connected to the others by streams of data that pulsed like the neural pathways of a vast brain. Phase 1 is complete, she reported to the assembled figures around the table. The Zephyrian Collective has been neutralized as a threat, and their intelligence network has been fully compromised. The Shepherd Program, as it was officially known, had been humanity's greatest secret and most ambitious project. For 50 years, while alien species observed human colonies and judged them weak, those same colonies had been developing the most advanced military force in the galaxy. Every human world has been preparing, Vasquez continued. Our farmers have been soldiers, our miners have been engineers, and our diplomats have been intelligence operatives. We've used their own prejudices against them, letting them see only what they expected to see. The shepherds themselves were the culmination of human ingenuity and determination. Volunteers from every human world had undergone enhancement procedures that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Neural implants allowed them to share consciousness and coordinate with perfect precision. Genetic modifications enhanced their physical capabilities beyond normal human limits, and their armor was not just protection, but a gateway to the collective intelligence of humanity itself. "The other species?" asked General Harrison, his weathered face serious. "Already responding," Vasquez replied. "The Altarian Republic has recalled their fleets from human borders. The Centauri Federation has requested formal diplomatic meetings, and the Andromedan Empire has begun peace overtures." The truth was spreading throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Humanity was not the weak, emotional species that others had believed. They were patient, intelligent, and had been preparing for this revelation for decades. The Andromedan response. On the imperial capital world of Andromeda Prime, Emperor HFY received the reports from his intelligence network with growing unease. The Andromedans had always prided themselves on being the galaxy's apex predators, the species that other civilizations feared and respected. "Show me the footage again," he commanded his military advisor, General Phoenix. The holographic display showed the new Terra engagement from multiple angles. They watched as human shepherds moved through Zephyrian forces with a grace and efficiency that seemed impossible. But it was not just their individual capabilities that impressed the Andromedans. It was their coordination and strategic thinking. "They let the Zephyrians attack first," Phoenix observed. "They could have prevented the assault entirely, but they chose to let it happen." HFY nodded slowly, his forearms folded in contemplation. "They wanted to send a message, not just to the Zephyrians, but to all of us." The Emperor had ruled the Andromedan Empire for 3 centuries, expanding their territory through conquest and intimidation. He understood the psychology of power better than most beings in the galaxy. What he saw in the human response was not just military capability, but strategic brilliance. "They've been playing a game we didn't even know we were part of," he realized. While we saw them as junior partners to be managed, they were positioning themselves to become the dominant power. The implications were staggering. Every interaction with humanity over the past 50 years would need to be reevaluated. Had their diplomatic concessions been genuine, or had they been strategic moves in a larger plan? How many other species had underestimated humanity's true nature? The galactic shift. Across the galaxy, the revelation of humanity's true capabilities was causing a fundamental shift in power dynamics. Species that had dominated for millennia found themselves suddenly uncertain about their place in the galactic order. On the trading world of Nexus Station, alien merchants and diplomats gathered in nervous groups, discussing the implications of what they had learned. The humans who had seemed so eager to trade and learn were now revealed as having been the most sophisticated intelligence operatives in the galaxy. "They've been watching us," whispered Trader Vexlan to his Altarian companion. "Every trade deal, every diplomatic meeting, every casual conversation. They've been building a database of our weaknesses and capabilities." The truth was even more comprehensive than they imagined. The human merchants who had established trading posts throughout the galaxy had been mapping supply lines, studying military installations, and identifying key strategic resources. The scientists who had participated in joint research projects had been acquiring advanced technologies while sharing only carefully selected information in return. Every human who had seemed overwhelmed by the complexity of galactic politics had actually been a trained operative, gathering intelligence and building the networks that would eventually allow humanity to project power across the stars. The final demonstration. 3 months after the New Terra incident, the galaxy received its final lesson in human capabilities. The hegemony of Kalar, one of the galaxy's most aggressive military powers, had decided to test humanity's resolve by attacking the human research station in the Proxima system. The hegemony's war fleet consisted of 47 capital ships, supported by hundreds of fighters and assault craft. It was a force capable of conquering entire star systems, and their commander, War Admiral Grixtar, was confident that humanity's previous success had been a fluke. "One colony's defenders cannot represent their entire species," he told his officers. "We will show the galaxy that humans are still the weak prey they have always been." The attack began with overwhelming force, designed to crush any resistance before it could organize. But as the hegemony fleet approached the research station, they encountered something that defied their understanding of space warfare. The human response was not a fleet of ships, but a single vessel, larger than anything in their databases. It emerged from hyperspace with the fluid grace of a living creature, its hull seeming to shift and adapt as they watched. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself," transmitted Grickstar. But he received no response. Instead, the ship began to change. Its hull separated into hundreds of smaller vessels, each one a perfect replica of the Shepherd ships from New Terra. They moved with the same impossible coordination, surrounding the hegemony fleet in a formation that seemed to anticipate every tactical possibility. The battle that followed lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the entire hegemony fleet had been disabled, their crews captured, and their ships claimed as prizes of war. Not a single human vessel had been destroyed. As Grickstar was led to his interrogation, he asked the question that every species in the galaxy was now asking. "What are you?" His human captor, a shepherd whose face was hidden behind an adaptive mask, answered with words that would echo across the stars. "We are what you made us. You wanted to see us as prey, so we let you hunt us while we learned to be the ultimate predators. You wanted to believe we were weak, so we showed you weakness while we built strength. You thought you understood us, but you never asked the right question." "What question?" Grickstar whispered. "Not what we are," the shepherd replied, "but what we're capable of becoming when you threaten what we protect. The new order. The galaxy would never be the same." The species that had ruled through fear and intimidation found themselves face to face with beings who had mastered both patience and power. Humanity had revealed itself not as the junior species seeking guidance, but as the apex predators who had been waiting for the right moment to claim their place at the top of the galactic hierarchy. The shepherds became the stuff of legend, silent guardians who protected human space with capabilities that bordered on the supernatural. But more than their individual power, it was their coordination and strategic thinking that marked humanity as the new dominant species. Other civilizations could build powerful weapons, train elite soldiers, and develop advanced technologies. But only humanity had demonstrated the patience to hide their true nature for 50 years while preparing for the inevitable conflict. Only humanity had turned their apparent weaknesses into strategic advantages, allowing their enemies to underestimate them while they prepared to strike. As the galaxy adapted to this new reality, one truth became clear to every species. The humans were no longer the uncertain newcomers seeking their place among the stars. They were the apex predators who had been patient enough to let their prey come to them, and wise enough to understand that the greatest victories are won not through strength alone, but through the intelligence to know when and how to use that strength. The age of human dominance had begun, not with conquest, but with revelation, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again.